Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and Dickwig. That's it. That's the joke. Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here, Ella, in the 9th week of 23 weeks of Trek.
Almost halfway through. Can you believe it?
Yeah. Wait, halfway through? 23
almost.
minus 9? Yeah, I guess we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're about as almost as,
yeah,
maybe like a third, but okay, I can see. But we are 2 weeks from Disco, though, the third season of Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah.
No response.
I wasn't ready. I haven't thought about Disco once. I've just been watching Lower Decks.
Vamp. I'll tell you that I recently rewatched the short trek Calypso in preparation for a backtracking episode. And I had forgotten a lot of the sort of mystery and the questions that surrounded the setting of the 32nd century.
The intrigue.
Yeah. And that's a good short trek, and watching it got me a little amped to see what's going on up there in the future.
It's an amazing short trek. And I hope they come out of the gate. I want it just exactly like how the movie was in this episode.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be very similar to that. They'll hit the ground running, that's for sure. Just a short plug, my co-host on Backtrekking, our guest from last week, Gooey Fame, and I watched Calypso, and then Funny Face, the the movie that is featured in that short trek, and compared the two of those in the backtracking style. So if you're interested in hearing about Fred Astaire and a self-aware computer, or a self-aware Federation ship, you can check that out at Backtrekking on Twitter. I don't have any news for this week, not really, except to say that, of course, Discovery is imminent, and I'm looking forward to that. Anything specifically other than just hitting the ground running that you want to see in the third season of Discovery? There is a cat.
Honestly, I'm just hoping the best. I don't know I just hope that I enjoy it. Is that a lame answer? I haven't thought about it at all.
No, I don't think so. I mean, at this point, obviously, you want the best or to experience something good. And I think that Discovery has hit some really high highs, and I don't think their lows have been super low, but no. I think they're still looking for that consistency, that you expect from a more mature Trek show. And this is their third season, and that, of course, is where a lot of Trek shows really, really start to where the rubber meets the road, if you will, to use an outdated metaphor for the future. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to the new adventure that they're going on in the future.
I feel like I'm ready for them to do some exploring of what the Federation kind of means. I feel like we've had some dark storylines, and I'm ready for them to be no, the Federation is this, and we're good, and we're going to bring it back and do this. I think it's going to be exciting.
Now the Federation likes Betty Boop cartoons, but we got to get their heads out of their asses, and yeah. Well, we've just seen the 9th episode of the animated series Lower Decks. It's an episode called Crisis Point, and we're here to talk all about it. But first, as always, a warning. We are setting a course for the spoiler zone listeners, so be warned. We're glad you decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Crisis Point is: Mariner repurposes Boimler's holodeck program to cast herself as the villain in a Lower Decks-style movie. This episode was written by Ben Rogers, who previously played Lieutenant Commander Stevens in the episodes Second Contact and Terminal Provocations. It was directed by Bob Suarez. There's no stardate given for this episode. Here's a quirky fact about the episode. It's positively adorkable. In the episode, and I kind of missed this because the dialogue was flying by, and my closed captioning doesn't work, as I've pointed out a couple times. But Mariner compares Boimler's role in this movie that she's creating to that of Zahn. a character that I guess hardcore Star Trek fans will recognize as a character that was developed for the canceled Star Trek Phase 2 project in the 70s.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, yeah. And Zahn was, I think at some point they were thinking about putting him in The Wrath of Khan as well, but they got Nimoy back and everything, and so they just kind of shot that. So she's basically saying he'll end up on the cutting room floor, maybe not even get filmed.
Mm-hmm.
And here is
I would cut Boimler if it was between him and Nimoy, be honest.
He did have a little subplot going on in this episode, though. And here is a frustrating fact about the episode, at least in my opinion, that we will dig into later. But this episode finally establishes that the relationship between Captain Freeman and Ensign Beckett is that of mother and daughter and is a secret to the rest of the crew.
That I realized I'd kind of been assuming that it was kind of like on the down low, but I also kind of was thinking that at some point Boimler would be like, oh, because she's your mom, right? And that some characters wouldn't know, but like some of them would who had done their homework.
Yeah.
And
for a guy who's reading everybody's logs all the time. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, when that came out at the end as I guess the just a nod to what's going to happen next week and just to ongoing continuity, I was like, oh, are we still tracking that? I forgot completely that we should have been tracking that because nobody's really mentioned it since the early episodes, but there you go. I just want to mention, as far as the guest stars of this episode go, he's been on many episodes of the show so far, but I wanted to mention Paul Scheer, if I hadn't before, comedy actor and a guy who's been in a lot of stuff and has a great podcast called Unspooled. And, of course, How Did This Get Made? He, of course, plays Chief Engineer Andy Billups, but not in this episode. He plays the hologram version of the Chief, but there he is. And then, and this tells you that it was an inside job the whole time, but comedian Paul F. Tompkins appears in this episode as Mick Lemo, the bird psychiatrist. He, of course, is also the host, along with Tawny Newsome, of the official Star Trek podcast. Dumb title, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, it's all connected. And then really weirdly...
Being a pineapple.
Yeah, yes, right. What was the fruit? I don't know.
It was pineapple.
Yeah. And then weirdly, Gary Cole appears in the episode as the hologram of Leonardo da Vinci, who Gary Cole is a comedic actor. I'm trying to think. I mean, he's been in so many things. I'm trying to pick like one thing. He was Ricky Bobby's dad in Talladega Nights, but he's been in a ton of stuff. And he's somebody who I could totally see being on Star Trek, definitely in a comedic capacity. He's a very funny actor, but he just plays, not on my watch. He's just like...
It was funny, though. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, so anyway, yeah, little cameo there. What did you think about Crisis Point?
I had a good time. It felt almost like a filler episode, but like in a very good way. Does that make sense? So like, it's not like a lot of like really smart, in-depth stuff happened. Like it was, as far as like Mariner and her feelings about her mom and Starfleet and whatever, like it was like, pretty straightforward, but
yeah.
I had a lot of fun.
It's, for me, I have very complicated feelings, and we might need to take it act by act, but I agree that it seemed like an escapist, fun episode, but there was more like character and more like, for this show, like development than there has been in past shows. I don't think that it comes off as like a tossed off fun episode, but I don't think they designed it that way really at all. I mean, last week I sort of had my epiphany that, they're Star Trek fans. They're supposed to be us. And this week there wasn't a lot of that at all, except for the weird meta Zahn, reference. I want to get out of the way because it won't fit anywhere else. But I call this Wallow Pursuits. That's my title for this episode. So clever. But they're not really doing that at all this week. And there's probably, again, like I said before, I was surprised that suddenly now we're tracking the mother-daughter secret. But also that this is kind of like where Mariner's I don't know if it's psychological. She does see a psychiatrist, but like her issues
Psyche?
kind of, but her issues kind of come to a head. And we've talked about it on and off just in like watching the show and observing the characters. But I didn't know that the show was really tracking Mariner. Like I didn't know there was anything wrong with Mariner necessarily. I just thought that we were supposed to root for her unorthodox style. And
oh, really?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's very little emotional weight in anything that really she does, and it reminds me once again, and I think that it's by design, but it reminds me of how in Rick and Morty, like Rick is obviously a cynical person, but they'll just jump around and do all kinds of stuff. And then suddenly in, the 8th or 9th episode of the season, he tries to kill himself, or Bird Person tells us that wubba lubba dub dub means, I want to die or whatever it is. And it's just like, it feels like, oh, quick, let's sneak some like psychological drama into this when we were just having fun and just, kicking eels last episode.
Oh, I guess kind of this whole time I was viewing her the way she sort of phrased things at the end of this episode, like the way she was like fighting internally about her mom and like, oh, if you were actually brave, like you would do the hard thing, and the hard thing is to be an officer, but you don't want to, you just want to be like with this. That's kind of how I thought about her the whole season, except for I never expected them to like dig into it a ton. I didn't really think they were going to do a ton with it like in the first season, but that's kind of how I thought about her character this whole time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of like the character description, like that's built into what we know about the character. But as far as like doing a ton, they haven't done a ton. Like usually it's just her, if they find themselves in a crisis either created by her or not, usually not. And then she's just got the answer, and Boimler, shakes his head and pees his pants because it's not the Starfleet way to do it. But I never felt like the show was ever really taking a stance on whether, because the show it's completely unable to criticize or critique the Star Trek franchise, like whether what she was doing was right. Like, why does Starfleet have all these dumb regulations? And we see they're the lower decks crew, and the upper decks crew is basically often ineffectual because of all their dumb regulations. And so I felt like the show was like giving its tacit approval to Mariner's approach to how she does stuff. But then we get like this episode in particular where it's like, oh no, she's way off the handle and she needs to bring it back. And she's literally creates a holodeck program where she's murdering everybody on the ship, in a sort of like therapeutic kind of session. So I just like, I feel like the show's like, it's like when a 80s sitcom gets real serious all of a sudden. Oh no, Tom Hanks is here and he's like drinking vanilla extract because he's a drunk and stuff like that.
I guess.
I don't know if that.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like
80s sitcoms fans out there.
Because of the way the holodeck is, I guess I wasn't really thinking like, oh my god, like she's crazy. I was just thinking like, oof, she's mad, and like, what's gonna come out of like this weird holodeck thing? Like, I guess. I don't know, that scene, I guess the scene with Tendi was really the only point where I was like, ooh, you're getting like weird beyond just the holodeck thing of wanting to murder your mother.
Yeah.
You're getting weird. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I was having too much fun. I don't know.
It's interesting because, this, for both good and bad, I think that this show it's not been accused, but I think part of the show is telling jokes that Star Trek fans have been telling themselves for almost 50 years, and like,
yeah.
And so its job, or I guess the challenge that I think that it faces or should face, is making those jokes fresh or doing the definitive version of those jokes. And we finally get to something that's a joke, but also maybe needs to be addressed, which is, hey, you're an Orion. Why don't you go out there and pirate something and take some slaves and stuff like that? And it's like, well, that's called racism, Mariner. I don't. How are we gonna sort of address or attack that. And the show pulls that card. It's like, I'll do it. It raises its hand and volunteers for that job, but then it doesn't, because it can't really criticize 50 years of Star Trek and portraying the poor Orions as just being these, just these total rogues. It kind of does it a little bit, but then our character's like, hey, that's not really cool. But then the characters are like, I know a lot of Orions who haven't been pirates for over 5 years. It's like, all right, well, I mean, are you taking on that idea of Orions, or are you just making another joke at the Orions' expense? Like, what's the character of the way you're attacking this here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely feel like, I mean, it's not really an episode that I was like, I wanted to think about too hard. Like the Orion thing, I was like, yeah, funny. And then I was like, and I will not dig into this.
Yeah, it's a splashy homage to like the TOS films. Like that's an episode that's like a Bang Zoom thing. And I'm not saying, I just think it's weird. It's very Rick and Morty of them to do something that's supposed to be really fun and then bring everybody down and bum everybody out because Rick wants to commit suicide, or something like that.
Oh God. Did you feel bummed out?
At times. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was bummed out. Well, I was bummed out by what I see as because there are some really like we just said, literally, like I think a send up of TOS movies is a great idea. There's so much stuff that you can do with that, and I think they do a lot of those jokes and do them well. But then it's also the sort of the penultimate episode where Mariner is finally we're seeing how dark things can get for her, and something that really confused me is that we set up this. So this is a great setup. Like she's in the holodeck, whether it's true or not, she transfers a lot of aggression onto her mother because her mother is like telling her what to do all the time. But obviously she feels inadequate and is insecure underneath herself. So they set this whole thing up where she's going to fight her and like defeat her fake mother, kill her parent or whatever. But of course she ends up fighting herself, which I think is like, I think the show could make a comment on her like narcissism, but it's really just her fighting herself. Like suddenly we swap out like the perceived villain at the end. And even for the milieu of what the show establishes, isn't this like, I know that she's reprogrammed it, but isn't this Boimler's sim? Like, shouldn't this be Boimler's view of Mariner? Like they want to have.
He made the holodeck characters using the private logs.
Yeah.
Question mark. So in theory,
I guess he's trying to make it as like realistic as possible, but I can't believe that he wouldn't use that chance to like to edit, the characters a little bit and like, and plus I didn't know we were tracking this, but he thinks she's hot, like he's attracted to her. I feel like we were exploring that in like the first or second episode, and suddenly that comes back. Okay.
But I mean, it could be you could read that either way. Because in theory, it's like he's panicking. So why would he blurt out her name right then? So he goes, she's hot. I like her. Or the only thing he could think of when she was like, what about Mariner is, she's hot. So I feel like it's 50-50, but I will say, call back to like the second episode of this show when I was like, what's endgame? If it's romance, what's the end game? I'll just say. But I'll
have to go back and listen to it. But yeah, one of us was trying to get to the bottom of what they were going to do with them. But yeah, so I don't know. Like having her fight a fake mother on the holodeck is cool. Having her fight a fake, like facing herself, her shadow self, or she is the shadow self. That's cool. But like, why do both of them? Like they just, I feel like they waste time trying to do both of them. I also think that like, if you're going to have this bird character, why not show at the end that the bird like set everything up or something like that? Like it really was, it really was therapy. This show loves its little like late act reveals. So, let's talk about some of the cool stuff just to get it out. I did like, I like that they do the, since we're doing like TOS films, they do the whole, ship fly around. And I know that the episode's only like 27 minutes long, but to do
That
the
was
joke
so funny.
to do the joke right, you kind of have to do it like longer than they do it.
And they did.
Well, yeah, I mean it's 6.5 minutes in motion picture, but like to have like just have it like you could do like a picture in picture where the characters are still flying around it, or like they go in and they're like, "God, she's beautiful. We got to do it again," and they're trying to fly back out and like go around again. It's like, no, we got to go back in.
That was so. When they started the bit about the movie and the credits were going, I was already excited. And then they went right into that, and I was like, this is. They did it so good.
Oh, God damn, she's beautiful.
Literally, and then cutting back to them looking out the window.
Yeah.
And then back in the ship, and then she walks on all like slow with the lens flares, and it's a little grainy. Oh my God.
Yeah, having her quote Shakespeare is like, okay, we'll take that off. That's good. There is how many holodeck episodes have they done on Lower Decks so far?
Two.
The one with Clippy, or I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Badgie, yeah, and this one. Okay.
Yeah, I mean Clippy.
That's not too many. I did like Boimler always gets, I think, short shrift in these episodes.
Okay, but the fake Boimler on the other ship.
Oh, the Shembo. Yeah, I don't really know what the point of that was, but it was kind of funny. I liked Boimler's. I liked the cookie thing. I like the fact that like this, because that's for me, that's the low key like kind of Shaggy Dog thing, is that this huge epic like film is going on, and then Boimler's just like, yeah, so is it like walnuts or like chocolate chips, like what is she like, and just trying to like get the information out.
I did like it. It's not my favorite. I had a very good time, I will say. I think it's maybe it's not. Seems like maybe it wasn't your favorite.
I don't even know how to feel about it. I feel like sometimes I feel like they put these scripts together in a blender. Like I just feel like they.
It feels on sometimes.
But when you think about, and look, I'm going to talk about the show's parent again. When you think about how structured, how like rock solid the structure of a Rick and Morty episode is, it doesn't mean, and I'm not some huge Rick and Morty fan, it doesn't mean that it can't be chaotic and wild, going all over the place like they often do. But I feel like they do that first, and then they're like, oh yeah, and then a bit about their mother and daughter, and then maybe he likes her or something, so we can keep that stuff going. Like I don't know what kind of plan they've really got for that, but yeah, I mean, like all the movie bits like worked really well for the most part. Okay, all right, here you go. This, I promised somebody that I would look into this. So
okay,
we need to. We're joke detectives. Okay, we're going to figure this out, and maybe you've got the answer already. But in the beginning, they have a teaser, and somehow Mariner has violated the Prime Directive all by herself, and she's freed these lizard people from the rat people or whatever.
Yeah.
And I like that line about her mom yells at her, and she's like, "You're a Liz Cannon. I don't care how many lizards you save." After she gets beamed away to therapy, she turns around and she's like, "Okay, what can we do to make this work? Can we give you some replicators?" And the guy's like,
"Is this about the pellets?
Does it make nutrient pellets? Tell me what the joke is. What's the joke? I don't know what the joke is. I don't get it."
My joke is that, do you want me to I think the joke is that he's skeptical about the replicators because he would rather just kill and eat the other species on his planet, but his like top bar for a food replicator is like literal pellets. So he's like, I don't know, does it make Nutra pellets? And she's like, yes, because that's like the easiest thing. That's like just some vitamins crunched together in a ball. You know what I mean?
Do lizards eat, like pet lizards eat nutrient pellets?
But he's not a lizard.
Oh, he's a rat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But do rats eat pellets?
Yes. Yeah. Rats do. Yeah. They come in little pellets.
Well, if he said like, do they make lizard meat? Like, wouldn't that be funnier than pellets?
Oh, but it'd be darker.
Well, yes, but that's called comedy. That's literally what comedy is. I'll give the show a lot of credit. Like this, the animation continues to be great, and like it's really smart to crash the ship like in the holodeck, so we can see that without destroying the ship. And so like the ship crash thing was great. There's all these little details in the visual comedy, like when she yells at him and she's like, "Okay, we're going to reverse all this," and the rat just kind of licks his lips. I think that was a great bit. But yeah, you could just say like, "Does it make lizard meat?" And then the lizard's like, that's like that's how you do that joke, right? I didn't get the pellets at all.
It was funny though because it's such an easy thing to make. I laughed at it.
I guess. I don't get it. I'm too dumb for this show.
You're too smart for it.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm just dumb enough.
I don't sign off on that.
Sit down just like head empty to watch this show.
I will say that just for like interviewing, the holodeck would be a great tool for that. Practice interviews and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. The holodeck.
Oh, go ahead.
We say watching a movie on the holodeck. Let's put aside how involved they are.
Yeah.
In this quote movie unquote, watching a movie. Do you know what my first thought was? I don't know if if I'm too much of a nerd. This is kind of sad. I was like, imagine if you could watch The Lord of the Rings on the holodeck. That was my first thought. I would peak. That would be the peak moment of my life.
Right into the suicide box after that. See, dark. No, that's like the Battle of Minas Tirith and like the elephants and the green ghosts are all around you and
yes!
they do that in Calypso. When they watch Funny Face, he's watching it like on the bridge, and then the computer is adding all these little kind of extra elements to it. Yeah,
I would lose it, dude.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Right into the suicide box.
Oh, I don't know. Just thinking Futurama. What else? Shembo, poor Shembo. There's I liked when Rutherford was. Well, first of all, I was a little disappointed because he goes off and he seems like he's going to kill, Billups or whatever, and then he's like, "No, man, you're great." And it's like, okay, it's a Shaggy Dog thing. The show loves to do that kind of stuff. But then when they teamed up and they're like, "You just want to get our own ship? I mean, just go away together." Like that was pretty great.
So good.
And I liked when there's a lot of convenience in the technology in Star Trek, and finally this show kind of makes fun of Star Trek because when the ship crashes, and he's like, "Oh my God, the crew." And Rutherford's like, "Oh no, I just beamed them all out. Yeah, in a movie you can do all kinds of stuff with beaming." It's kind of making fun of like kind of some of the convenience in the technology you see in the films. But yeah, that was pretty good. Also, it was kind of funny, but it was also kind of terrifying when the ship crashed and then it landed on its edge and it was rolling like a coin like down the thing. It's like. That would be a worst case scenario for a saucer crash. Would let the inertial dampeners handle that.
Do you know those things like stay with me?
Okay.
Okay. Those I'm sorry. Those things at the zoo where you can put like a penny in on either side and it's like a big weird funnel.
The gravity well thing, yeah.
And they keep going down.
They just keep rolling across continents. Oh
no!
How much puke can the saucer hold? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I had to get that out of my head.
I will say that once again, it was kind of like green light for references in this one because they're literally doing like the films, but employing the references is, I don't know. Here's what I'm mad about. It's bad enough that I have to sit through.
That's what we call this podcast.
It's
Here's what I'm mad about.
It's bad enough I have to sit through like 7 people signing their name at the end of Star Trek 6. I mean, they've earned it, but then they do the joke in this, and I'm just like, for 45 seconds, I'm just watching people, 4 people sign their names, and it's like, okay, the joke, like, oh, I get what they're doing. Oh, they're still doing it. They're still doing it, and it just kind of keeps going, and it's like, all right, that's your reference humor, man. That's how much you can get out of it.
Isn't that a little bit of the funny part, though, is that it does go on for so long?
But then it has to go on for a super long... It has to be longer than it was in Star Trek 6. That's how it works.
These are the rules!
Yes! Reference to a thing that is longer than this, but this will be short.
We only have 26 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Which, why? There's no commercial breaks.
Yeah, but don't. Yeah, but
like 24 minutes.
Yeah, I like that these. That's one thing that I'll give to the crew and McMahon, who worked on the other show, is that the length is consistent. Even Discovery, even in season 2, Discovery still had problems with that. Just this one's 38 minutes because we're just kind of connecting to other things, and this one's 65 minutes because it's the finale. Like, try to keep it more. People still watch TV that way. They still watch it 22 minutes, 44 minutes, whatever it is. But
make it like an even 30.
Yeah, they could just fill in the extra commercial space or an extra act, or
because I feel like cartoons are 20 some minutes because then you have 6 to 8 minutes of commercials or whatever.
Commercials and yeah.
Yeah, there's no commercials, but this isn't Nickelodeon yet. Dun dun dun.
No.
Although can I say something annoying?
Sure.
I never watch TV to the point where when I do watch TV and it cuts to a commercial break, I'm like interested.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I'm like, ooh, a commercial. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, what's gonna happen?
I was an early adopter of digital TV and internet TV, so I haven't really consistently seen commercials in almost 20 years now.
That's what I mean. I'm like, I don't watch commercials.
So
I'm like, if I don't watch this show on, it's like, and this is my apartment. I just realized I don't know if we have TV. My TV is hooked up to Netflix. My TV connects to the internet. How am I going to watch a Nickelodeon show?
I'm glad that you are both old enough and young enough to be impressed by that still. There must be somebody who 10 seconds younger than you who's just like, yeah, man, I just get beamed in my brain. What? It's Queeby, whatever.
It's that sweet generational cusp. Late 97, early 98. Just I know so much. Everyone's like, what does a pencil and a VHS tape have in common? I'm like, you wind it. I know. Stop asking me these questions.
Not a Zoomer, not yet a millennial. Yes.
Oh.
Anything else that you wanted to say about this before we wrap it up?
I don't know. I don't think so. I had a really good time. I thought most of the jokes very funny. Quote jokes, unquote, as we make fun of them on this show. But I did get I like the bit. I do agree with you about how they do kind of like, it's like they're doing like 3 things at once sometimes. It's like the holodeck movie episode, but then it's like, oh, it's like the thing with her mom, but it's a thing with herself. And then at the very end, it's like, does Boimler think she's hot?
Yeah.
No, she's nasty.
There's a show, I don't know if you've seen it on Netflix, called Another Life.
I haven't.
Don't watch it. Don't watch it. It's not good. But it stars Katie Sackhoff and the guy who, what was he in? He was on Shameless for the first couple seasons. He was a boyfriend or something like that. But anyway, the point is that like Katie Sackhoff is the captain of a ship that's going to another planet. They've received alien signals, and so they're going to go try to meet these aliens. It's like near future, but somewhat futuristic, and it's so. It's good for some, and some of the episodes are really entertaining, but there's no structure to them. It's literally they're just hit with problem after problem after problem. They take some breaks because, of course, all the astronauts on this ship are like, hot. It's like a Melrose Place, like in Melrose Space. There you go. Caught myself. And so it's like, oh my God, the ship's turning to water. Oh no. And then they'll have to like deal with that. And then they like make out a little bit. And then it's like, oh my God, space is white now. Oh no. And then they, make out some more and like, and it just, and the episodes are just an hour-ish and they just end wherever. Although they generally like, as soon as they end, like right before they end, they try to introduce another like, oh no, our hands smell like garlic. And there's just something else. And this like Star Trek, I know we're trying a lot of stuff. I think it's great, but like Star Trek has been like pretty fastidiously constructed for like the last 50 years. And sometimes I know it's an animated chaotic show, but like sometimes it feels like that. It's just like, this, this. Oh, the bats are coming out of the dog's mouth. Oh, we're doing this. And, I'm assimilating it, but it's a lot to assimilate. The Borg would go, no, we're good.
They'd pass.
We've adapted to not want this show.
I'm sticking with it. That would be a good joke, honestly, on the show, is for the Borg to come and then just see Mariner scream at the captain and be like, you know what?
They're watching from far away. Yeah.
They're like, nah, I don't think we need that one. Nah.
There's a sphere far away, and they're just like
smart ones on the Enterprise. Where's that French guy?
Or the guys from Voyager, the aliens with the, I don't know, they look like tapirs and they spy on people and steal their stuff, and they just like they're spying on the Cerritos and they're like, I think we're good. We can probably let's go.
Oh, we're fine.
All right. Well, hey, we got an entertaining discussion out of it, and that's what really counts on a podcast.
Yes. This is a podcast.
Well, I think that's it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. And if you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPod for updates and to get notified when new episodes of Discoverage and Enterprising Individuals are released. You can tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage or email us at EISTPod@gmail.com. And while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed. Give us a rating and a review because it really helps us out. If you want to help the show grow, you can stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTpod. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return on October 8th for the 10th and final episode of Season 1 of Lower Decks. And as usual, we don't have a title for it just yet, but we'll be here next Thursday to cover it and to talk about Season 1 of Lower Decks as a whole. We'll be going live once again at 7 p.m. Central on Thursday, so join us then. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. And in the meantime, why not check out our main show, Enterprising Individuals, at enterprisingindividuals.com. Every Wednesday on the show, I and a special guest discuss in excruciating detail a selected episode from a Star Trek series. We also have news from the Trek sphere and interviews with special guests. Our latest episode just dropped, and on it, I'm joined by singer-songwriter and activist Tay Phoenix, who's heading up the Trek the Vote Project, a grassroots fan-driven volunteer drive whose mission is to connect American Star Trek fans with nonpartisan groups who are working to ensure a fair, equitable electoral process in our communities. If you thought about volunteering your time as a poll worker or even helping potential voters get registered to vote and locating their polling places, Trek the Vote is organizing eager Trek fans to do just that. Go to trekthe.vote for more information. You can also check your registration status and find polling places at trekthe.vote. Vote! And check it out. You can hear my talk with Tay about protest and activism in Trek at enterprisingindividuals.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about tonight's episode of Lower Decks. Remind people where they can find you online.
You can find me at Generations Geek on social media and wherever you listen to podcasts. We're still on a mini hiatus right now, but by the end of the month, we'll have Catching Fire up and ready for you guys. It's going to be great. My dad's never seen them.
That's great. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to revisiting that media, but not actually like reading the books again or watching the movies. Just listening.
Fire is a trip of a book and a film, and they did such a good job with it. Truly, there's that scene. I think I've talked about this before, literally on the podcast, talking about this episode coming up on Generations Geek.
Yeah, it's a long time coming.
But they have that scene in it where they change the aspect ratio. So It goes almost black, and then when she comes up into the sunlight, it's like bigger. Crazy stuff. Maybe that's just I'm like an annoying film student still. I'm like, can you believe they changed
Never
the
stop
shape?
being.
The lights are bigger on the screen.
Never Stop Being Annoying, or A Film Student. Is that the one where they had to replace or fill in Philip Seymour Hoffman? Did that happen then?
No, I think that was the last movie. Okay. Is that he filmed part, but not all of it, or he filmed just enough of. Yeah, I think it was the final one. Yeah, okay. So we have a couple more to go yet.
Well, I'll wait for hearing about that and also hearing about Catching Fire. And that is it for us. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we are signing off. This is Aaron for Ella saying live long and prosper.